Why don't we start it out with Boston and Cleveland? The Celtics continue to be posted as underdogs, and they continue to win outright as underdogs. But the home-road splits have been quite pronounced. Why don't we see what you like on this game first, and then I will tell the viewers what I do like.
Yeah, Joe, we've been dead on so far with the unders in the first two games. The last one survived by a couple of points, but still went under. I was wrong on LeBron James. He brought his A game, throwing up a triple-double and 40-plus points. And, Brad Stevens came out after that game and said, we're just trying to make it as hard as possible. And the guy still puts up 40 points. So, they're coming home. This to me is a very, very tricky game. In the back of my mind, I'm sitting to myself looking at this, and you've got to think Cleveland's going to play better at home. And statistics will show role players, guys like Kyle Korver, guys like George Hill, J.R. Smith, those type of players typically play much, much better at home. So I would not be shocked to see Cleveland come home and get a double-digit win at home. That's very much where I'm leaning. But on the same side, this Boston team, they're putting up points. They're still playing great defense. They're forcing LeBron James into a lot of tough shots, a lot of shots that he's making. I mean, if you go back and watch the tape to put up that 40 points, he really earned just about all 40 of those points. So, right now, Joe, I'm still rolling with the unders in this. I think Boston's kind of outscored themselves. I didn't expect them to put up, 108 and 107 in those first couple of games. I expected them to be more into the high 90s. I think they will have a slower scoring night, and I think defensively they're still one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, if not the best defensive team in the NBA. So I'm going to continue to roll with these unders until it proves me otherwise. As far as the side goes, I definitely would have a strong lean on Cleveland, because this is the team, that comes home, and it's do or die at this point. Obviously, if they lose this game, this series is all but over. But I think LeBron James is going to rally the troops, and those role players will step up. So definitely a strong lead on the side, but I do like the under once again.
And we will talk about Houston Golden State in a moment. Let me take a look at those odds, by the way, at the SBR odds. You know how much I do love this site. Cleveland is a 6.5-point favorite. That's fairly much across the board. As you can see, shop around. The juice does vary. And I tell you time and time again, it's so important not just to shop around for the best line, but the best juice. And it looks like 205 is pretty much across the board. And then we will talk about the Sunday game in a moment, Houston and Golden State. The Warriors are laying 7, though, but again with varying juice. And you can see at SBR odds, there are some 7.5s out there. The total is at 226. I know I've said, at times that my research has shown in all sports that splits don't usually hold up. And again, splits, what I mean by that is how a team performs at home as opposed to how they perform at the road. But those systems that I have where I actually fade the splits are based on season to date, not so much playoff specific. And I don't think that this is an aberration because, look, young teams understandably normally do play better at home than they are on the road. Now, again, when I talk about young teams, I'm not talking about from top to bottom the average age of the team. I'm talking about the age of their stars. And obviously, Boston with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Terry Rozier, who's, we've talked so much about the other two guys. Rozier has been tremendous as well. So really, 3 of their 4 best players are quite young. So it is not really surprising they've been much better at home than on the road. In fact, they're 9-0 straight up at home in the playoffs, 2-3, they're 9-1 straight up at home, 1-4 on the road, but they are a perfect 9-0 at home where they push in 2-3 against the spread. As far as their splits are concerned. So they've been so much better at home, plus 11.3 at home, minus 9 points on the road. And remember, their only win on the road was in overtime against the Sixers in a game which they just flat out gave it away. Now, that being said, although they are so young, it makes sense that they would play much better at home than they would on the road. And by the way, the Celtics, they're actually undefeated at home this year in the playoffs. Their starters are shooting 45% on the road, but their bench just 33%. So in many respects, it kind of belies what I've said. It's really some of their guys coming off of the bench that have really not performed as well on the road. that being said, look, with the 3 days rest, you can shorten your bench. So who does the 3 days rest benefit more? The obvious answer to me would be Cleveland because, of course, their two best players are both up there in age. Plus, they're the team that needs to make the adjustments. A team that's playing well, they're the team that really doesn't want to have the rest. But then again, the Celtics, as I said, they've been very top-heavy. They haven't gotten much production from the bench, so maybe the rest will also benefit them. Now, this, I'll preface it by saying maybe this is kind of a case of retrofitting the facts, using inductive reasoning rather than deductive. But still, I think it kind of makes sense. When both teams have 3 days rest in the playoffs, so it doesn't have to be, it could be a game one where they don't have the same number of days rest. But when both teams do have exactly 3 days of rest, it goes over 57.9% in the postseason. And that kind of makes sense to me. Like I said, I'll be my own critic where maybe it's retrofitting the logic, but it means that their legs will be good so they can play an up-tempo, but it's not so much rest where they're going to be rusty. So I think you can kind of say that, exactly 3 days rest might be the optimal for the offenses. So maybe I would lean a little bit towards the over. I know that's, a little bit different than what you said, Troy, but then again, conversely, as I said, intensity usually shows up on the defensive end, and that Cleveland's going to come out flying. I do think, that, again, you might say, yeah, maybe Cleveland in the first quarter because they're going to come out. But then again, they are a veteran team, so they're going to play with emotion. At the end of the day, this point spread looks like it's way high considering how well Boston has played. But here's where I do agree. It's kind of a cliche, but I do agree with the old, do not underestimate the heart of a champion, and LeBron is going to come out flying. I don't even know what his individual over-under is on points, but I'm sure it's going to be, pretty high, probably around 28, 29. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 40 again. So maybe take a look at LeBron and the over. LeBron individual over, but I also think I would lean towards the over for the reasons I stated as far as the total in this game. And then Houston and Golden State. Well, Troy, like I said, I'm not going to say I did have Houston, by the way, in game two, so I certainly can't say that I was shocked by it. But, that was kind of the analytics part. And I said more times than not when my analytics go kind of opposite of my gut feeling, I stick with the analytics, and that was a good thing in game two. Still, though, Golden State, as I said at the top of this report, I still think this is one of the best teams in the NBA against one of the great teams of all time. I'll tell you about what I think in this game, but Houston and Golden State, Troy, what do you got?
The lean would go towards Houston in this game. I'm seeing this line right around 7 points, and I think that's just a lot of points. I think this Houston team truly did find something in game two. Eric Gordon really stepped up his basketball game. James Harden still played well. Chris Paul played well. This was Houston basketball. To put up 127 points against the Golden State team is nonetheless of remarkable. They absolutely played outstanding, and they made a statement in that game. And I think more than anything, Joe, that really gave them confidence that they need to continue to move into this series and potentially make this a series that most people are going to give it credit for. So I don't necessarily know that they're going to go into Oracle and win the game, but if that game didn't give them confidence to stay within 7 points, I think there's something wrong. Trevor Reeves has stepped up big. The role players stepped up big, and we'll see if they can do that and match that again on the road. For me, it's getting 7 points. I think Golden State can win this game. They probably will win this game, but 7 points to me is a little bit too much. I got a very strong lean on Houston in this one.
Let's give Houston credit. Look, I said before this series began that I felt Golden State matched up with them pretty well because Houston, it's no secret, they like to go with the isolation, and Golden State certainly has the athletes to keep up with them, and they definitely did in game one. Houston in game two, they didn't really change it. They ran about the same percentage, I think a slightly higher percentage of isolation. The big difference, though, was in game one, James Harden went from 26 isolation plays down to 16, but Chris Paul's increased from 10 to 16, and Houston had much better ball movement. It's the old adage, what coaches tell you really, even at the high school level, even the junior high level, that the defense can't move as fast as the ball. And Houston did a much better job with their ball movement and spreading the ball. And obviously, they did go in isolation with Chris Paul more in the last game and James Harden a little bit less, and that really meant more on isolation where Chris Paul could distribute the ball. He could make the decision whether to dish the ball off or whether, to take it to the hoop. So that was really their biggest improvement, Houston, in moving their ball, and they even got a lot more looks. The advanced analytics at Houston had 12 uncontested three-pointers, making 6 of those compared to just 5 uncontested three-pointers, and 3 of them went in game 1. So it really wasn't, Houston didn't make that many adjustments. It literally came down to execution. And Golden State, conversely, where Stephen Curry has been so-so in the series, and he was really struggled in game 2. And the one thing that Golden State does tend to do, they kind of, maybe when they play an up-tempo, they tend to get sloppy, and they have some turnovers that could really fit in the unforced turnover category. Really, I think the big difference wasn't so much X and O's between game 1 and game 2. It literally was just execution. Golden State executed so much better in game 1. Houston executed so much better in game 2. And like I said, they kind of changed up their isolation. But Houston's not going to change. They're going to go in straight isolation, and it's going to be Golden State's job to basically stop that. But yeah, as you said, the point spread is up there. It is very tempting to take all those points. But again, Golden State, a team that's been punched in the mouth, wouldn't be surprised if they bounce back at home with a blowout victory. As a general rule of thumb, these high totals in the playoffs do go under the total, so I would lean towards the under in that Houston Golden State game. But, as is the case with the conference finals, and especially I really think there's a lot more plots and subplots maybe in the Eastern Conference, but in the Western Conference, conversely, it's just, the 2 most talented teams going against each other. So, depending on which way you want to look at it, maybe from a script standpoint, what's going to happen. Boston, Cleveland is more interesting, but certainly the pure basketball fan, when you're talking about talent and athleticism, it is Houston and Golden State that is definitely the most intriguing. Now, is there anything that maybe, Troy, I know we talked about before these series began, we gave a little bit of our thoughts on who could win these series. The obvious thing would be that, Boston, of course, you're going to be a lot more confident they could win this series against Cleveland. Though I think all in all, I still wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland wins this series. Boston has struggled on the road, but Houston showed, I did say that I thought maybe a good bet would be to bet on Golden State in 4 or 5 games. I don't know if I'm going to completely back off of that. Is there anything that's real? If you were going to make a series bet right now, is there anything in the first 2 games that really changed your mind at all?
Joe, it's interesting. I do think that the Houston series goes deeper than we had thought. I really do. Golden State, if they get these next 2, this one's obviously all but over. I mean, Houston's got to somehow sneak a game in Golden State to make this as interesting as we think. As far as the other series goes, like you said, that to me still is a total crapshoot. It really is. I mean, I'm shocked to see Boston up 2-0. I really am. I mean, Brad Stevens has been outstanding all year, but I just did not think that they had the talent to hang around with the Cavaliers. I just thought the talent was going to be too overwhelming, and I thought that LeBron James would be such a mismatch that this could be trouble. But Brad Stevens has really shown you the power of a coach. And so, as far as that series goes, I would not be shocked whatsoever to see Cleveland get both home games and make this an interesting series. So I'm not backing away from Cleveland. I thought this series would go long. I thought Cleveland would potentially win this one in 6 or 7, and it looks like it could go that way. But the series is all but, very far from over, Joe. I just think that, Boston getting a game in Cleveland is going to be extremely rare. I don't necessarily see it happening. If it gets to 2-2, obviously it's anyone's ball game. And I just think Houston made a statement yesterday. I really do. I think they've got that confidence that they can beat Golden State now. And it could be interesting to see what happens in Oracle here in these next couple of games. It could be a lot of fun.
And it's interesting, I saw ESPN.com kind of stole our thunder, not that the rest of the world hasn't been talking about this, but I said that, all in all, in any single sport, I'd rather have the most talented team than the better coach. But Brad Stevens is the guy who's shown that, maybe that's not a perfect theory. And even ESPN.com, I think today they came out with an article, look, is having Brad Stevens more important than having a superstar? And it just might be because, look, on one on one hand, I can say if Cleveland, if they kind of get the momentum back at home, and they've been there and done that, and even as good as Boston has been at home, that still Cleveland gets a little momentum. Maybe the veteran team, it benefits that Cleveland's been there and done that. But again, that great equalizer would be Brad Stevens. And I'm projecting, of course, that would be even if Cleveland does win both games at home. But yeah, there is just so many subplots. There is one thing, though, that I think that I'm going to say that I was wrong about, that, both of us had maybe focused so much on how many injuries Boston had, and I think we both agreed that Philadelphia was going to win in like 5 or 6 in the last series. But you know what? You look at Boston, the truth is, as great as Brad Stevens has been, they do have a little more talent. Then again, that being said, I'm going to make the comparison. I think that Al Horford's kind of a poor man's Dirk Nowitzki when Dallas finally won the NBA championship, where the criticism, myself included, always said Nowitzki couldn't be considered among the top 15 or 20 players of all time because you could get physical with him in the playoffs, and he was a lesser player in the playoffs than he was during the regular season. And then he just put it all together, played very physical, got some points in the paint when Dallas won the NBA championship. And I think Al Horford's doing the same thing. Obviously, he's not quite the superstar that Dirk is, but maybe that is a testament to the greatness of Brad Stevens. But is it maybe a case that we underestimated Boston's young talent a little bit, or is, Brad every bit as great as, a lot of people are saying, and you and I have said he might be the best coach in the NBA?
Yeah, Joe, I can't remember the last time we talked about a coach like Brad Stevens. I mean, Greg Popovich is obviously probably the closest thing, maybe Phil Jackson, but I can't remember anybody talking about a coach like Brad Stevens. But no one could really see this coming from Boston. I mean, the guys that have stepped up in these young roles and really stepped up, I don't want to call them superstars, they're not there yet, but the way that these guys have stepped up and really started clicking as a team, I don't think anybody could have handicapped this nor saw this coming. I mean, this is truly remarkable. And they took down a good Milwaukee team, a very good 76er team, and now they're up 2-0 on the Eastern Conference champions of the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see where it ends up. But I don't think anybody could have really saw this coming, Joe. This has been remarkable as far as the young talent truly stepping up, because these guys were good players in the regular season, but many, many, many people thought, okay, this team's at least a couple of years away. And who knows? It'd be really interesting to see when you plug Hayward and Kyrie into that lineup next year, what happens. I mean, who knows? It could shake things up for the worse. You never know. I mean, you see teams all the time with superstars getting thrown into the mix, and it kind of shakes things up and doesn't necessarily mean championships. So what Brad Stevens done with this young talent really elevated their game. Has been remarkable, and I'm not sure anybody could have seen it coming.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, especially if Markelle Fultz can find his shot in Philadelphia, we don't want to look too far ahead, but you kind of alluded to it when Boston gets healthy next year. It looks like the Boston-Philadelphia rivalry should be resuming. Of course, the 76ers got to keep Joel Embiid heavy, but yeah, that's going to be one of the great rivalries again, I think, over the next literally 5-10 years. Of course, the Sixers might regret that Tatum trade for a long, long time unless Fultz can find his shot. But again, we'll talk about that next year for sure. But Troy and I will be back next week with another look at these conference finals. But Troy, why don't you tell everybody what they can get at TroyWins.com?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. We're on a really, really nice run right now. Actually, haven't lost an official play yet in these Eastern and Western Conference Finals, 4-0. And our NHL series bet that you and I talked about a while ago did not look good. We had the Tampa Bay Lightning, but we evened the series out at 2-2. So 25-10 run right now at TroyWins.com. Happy to come take a look and see what we're doing.
Yeah, that was an exciting finish to that Game 4 of Tampa Bay and Washington for sure. Things going well at OffshoreInsiders.com. Baseball, we have a couple of our best systems have been ridiculous this year, and we're getting back on track in Major League Baseball. It's been a great postseason. It's been a great basketball season, period, college and pro. But be with me, it's going to be a long, hot summer of winners and a rough summer for your man with baseball picks as we've really refined some of our best baseball systems. Join me at OffshoreInsiders.com. And like I said, please, if you like the information we give, literally like these videos, feel free to comment, share. Most importantly, subscribe to these. You don't want to miss a Sportsbook review video whatsoever. And Troy and I will talk next week with the latest developments.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.